Regular Q&A. Go ahead, Barbara, start us out, then Lolly.
Hey, hey.
And you don't need me. Yep, there you go. Perfect.
Hey there. Um, so I have a question about of all the practices and oils we've worked with, what would you suggest for wanting to focus on lucid dreaming?
Hmm. So, do you mean for you?
Well, I've been thinking about it, but someone else also inquired. So maybe for someone that hasn't been working with the oils a long time and someone who has.
Okay. Yeah, for that, I would say it's a case by case basis. That's why I was like for you, because like if somebody hasn't been doing all this other stuff, you know, we'd have to get them caught up a little bit, or at least in a direction that could start producing a little something for them. Um,
So that this other person is talks about having trouble quieting the monkey mind so that she feels like she can be tapped into her a
for
higher
that
state of
person,
consciousness while she sleeps. Yeah.
yeah, for that person, I would do work with like the working on limbic function,
Hmm.
splendor, vital centers. There's the whole class that's the vital centers, but splendor is helpful. Um, but also, vetiver improves the vagal tone of the limbic system.
Right.
And so, I would do that a bit as well. Um,
And how would you suggest she use these?
Inhalation, like is she a meditator or like what's her background?
Trying to be definitely a seeker.
Okay. Has she been doing much practice though?
Meditation practice?
In
I'm
any
not,
sort of practices? Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I would
I,
say
I'd,
some, but I don't know to what extent.
I'd probably start off with the materialization breath, because that for somebody who hasn't been doing the deeper dives and all that, it calms down the system, it throws off conditioning, the elementals, it materializes light into the body and the things that they're connected with in the environment, and it helps to align, well, like I think a better way of saying it instead of aligning is you're refining the aspects of will that are being associated with being closer to spiritual will. You know,
Mhm.
the the thing is like even when somebody is we do our practices and we sleep and everything. I mean, part of the issue is where are they with their will when they're sleeping? Like you could be doing the same. I'm not saying that this is this person. I'm just using this as an example. But you
Mhm.
could be going through and doing a bunch of healing work on somebody, and things that kind of consistently produce a result. But if they have the will of that they're not going to do that, they're going to do something different, or they're aligned with something in their head, as much as you go up against that, it doesn't really shift or change anything. And so,
I think she's pretty willing to explore this.
okay. Well, so that like the next thing I was going to say is it's not necessarily the will that they choose. It's just it's usually a byproduct of conditioning and like all
Mhm.
these things. And so, I mean, for myself, um, I go through phases where I do the materialization breath, and there's deeper practices than the materialization breath, but I still go back and revisit it because of how it refines the will.
Okay.
And so I would say that would be a good starting point. I don't know if it's going to totally get them to the lucid dreaming, but I'd do that for a little bit, like maybe 3 weeks or a month of just doing practices where, if they have oils, that would be great. Even if they don't have oils, I would do that. And it's going to make accessing the lucid dreaming aspects of intuition much easier. And because a lot of times the different things in with will are reactions to pain, reactions to difficulty, reactions to like fear and anxiety. It's not necessarily that they go, "Oh, I'm going to choose to be difficult," or you know what I mean? Like I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I don't choose that, but um, it's usually like that really hurt. A lot of times you can boil it down. It might not be physical pain, but it's some sort of emotional pain, mental pain, the
Mm-hmm.
pain of lack. Something didn't happen.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of versions of it, and that's the thing. It's doing spiritual practices. We're in a little bit of a predicament because as you become more aware, for one, your field gets bigger, but you become more aware of, a lot of times people aren't intentionally trying to be hurtful, but they're just walking around being hurtful. And you just become more aware of it. And, how do you get to a place where you don't personalize it, you don't take it on that it's something directed specifically at you, even though sometimes it feels that way. Um, I think it's good to do the materialization breath from time to time just to kind of keep all of that like ugh. I will say that a lot of the work with the nervous system, a lot of work with how we did the cultivating the mystical heart. Boy,
Hmm.
that's e-ticket ride in deep into the psyche, deep into the psyche. So I mean, how we do with things with vagal tone, we do things with angels. Angels are a much deeper way of achieving vagal tone in the body. Um, uh, and then all of that system, that nervous system work. And then, even like what we did last weekend with the planetary energies, like we did different aspects of the moon. Um, Very potent, and one that we're going to come around and talk about it again, but the alchemical processes of the directions.
I'm waiting for that to come
Uh,
around again.
yeah, there's a lot more going on there than I talked about. A lot. And you know, we're getting
I think
ready to travel and everything, and I have my little oil kits, but I have a special little kit that's the alchemical directions. And there's a couple little kits that I like. They're in my shoulder bag. They're not even in my suitcase. Like they're in, like, if I have time in the car, or for flying or something like that. um yeah, and go through and do that. And so eventually there's these other things that I, there might be this piece that I just put out to you guys and maybe not even have it be a class. I don't know how many people would be into it, but it's all the little um, defense mechanisms of the intellect. And there's a bunch.
who
There's,
wouldn't want to look at that?
yeah, yeah. I will say, like, the more that I've worked it different ways through the years. even with healing, with oils, with plants, with stones. And the way that I'm working it now, it's pretty nice. I'm really liking the how quickly it produces a result. But it's just, I say it's like these like defenses, or how sometimes I say the intellect is like is very good at impersonating something. There's a whole like little list of impersonations that it does. And so like just to start clicking them off. And I will say like it makes the sleep deeper. It takes a weird tension out of your body, out of your mind that you don't even know that's there. It's probably more in the mind than anything. So, on paper we say defenses, but really it's these kinds of tension in the intellect that doesn't allow the mind to relax. And so the more you keep working those things, the more the different parts of the mind relax. And, it's able to shift and do other things. And so, you know, I'm just using single oils with them. It's not even like it's all a bunch of different blends and things. It's just single oils, and it's a, particular pattern. But, you know, I don't know how interested people would be. So I do them, but you know,
Thank you for this. I'll
yeah,
distill something down
it's a
for her. I know
weird,
there's a lot of emotional trauma in her past.
yeah, exactly. I mean, we all got it.
Yeah,
But I
I
mean, we
think
all
she had
have,
a good dose of it.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so
And
for,
and so like the materialization breath kind of helps clean things up. But then like the deeper dive, I'd probably go like if it sounds like she's already been kind of doing things, I would probably go into the nervous system with the cultivating the mystic heart, so where you go into the autonomic and the somatic and the enteric. And it's nice just to kind of get everything like in a particular place. And as for you though, hmm, do you remember that class? It's the class right after the auric programming where it's all the Jungian stuff. What's that called?
The divine, was it one of the ARC program
Yeah,
ones, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's like it had paradox and mind stream, and
was it ARC? Um,
it's like healing with intuition or something. Or
ARC waves the functions of the aura. What's it? It's the
Intuition and healing the past.
intuition and healing the past. Yes, thank you, Lolly. Um,
yes, that's one of
okay, so take the oils from that class and let's write this down. Right, like I write this down. So you know how we do the five senses, right?
Mhm.
And then sometimes we go through and we do the organs of blood purification. You're going to do them together, right? So like you do your eyes and your liver both at the same time.
Okay.
And then, okay, so you go eyes and then nostrils and lungs both at the same time.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. What's that?
No, that's fine.
And then tongue and spleen, both at the same time. And then ears and kidneys at the same time. And then the face and the gallbladder
Hmm.
at the same time.
So do that with a particular, any of those
I,
oils?
I, I would work your way through like all the different oils
Okay.
in that. But at first, the very first one I'd probably do is paradox.
Okay.
Paradox and then mind stream maybe second. And then after that, you know, just whichever one's gonna grab you. So after you do that, do your brain, like let everything go, let it sit for a minute, and then awareness on your brain. And then from there, move your awareness to your back throat.
Okay.
So, like with that, you're breaking up like some of the pattern and the tension in the intellect, and you're breaking up the tension and pattern in the emotional body.
Hmm.
So,
Because of the
both
combination.
and a lot of our mind is not just, there's instinct in there, but there's emotion and there's thought. And so like here you're kind of focusing on the the thought, the mental energy, and then the emotional component. Um, if you want to add a little something to it, is you can take those same oils after you've done the senses and the organs of blood purification, and then do the basic, and then the spleen, and then the main men, and then the crown.
Okay.
And you would do that before or after the brain back throat?
I would do it after.
Okay.
And how often? Once a week? Once or
Oh
twice
no,
a
you
week?
could do it multiple times. Like you could do it daily. You might want to just work
Maybe not
one
all the way.
oil for a while, or you might want to rotate through them, like however you want to do it. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Let me know how that goes. But that should open up the intuition in a way. Because the thing with the lucid dreaming is there's the dreaming part where you see like action and activity, but I would say there's an even more subtle thing that happens, and I would call it like lucid perceiving.
Hmm.
It's not like you're seeing scenarios, but you're seeing these very subtle, I wouldn't even call them patterns. I'd call them phenomena. Like you can just like see these like little subtleties that are not in our daily everyday life, but there are things that are there that are very quiet and subtle, and in that lucid place is where you would be able to perceive them. Like my experience is, unless I'm quiet and isolated, I can't really perceive them during the day. I can only really perceive them at night. Like
Mm.
things have to be like a lot quieter to see them. You
When you,
might be awake, you might be asleep, but you'll start seeing like mm,
are you talking seeing as a perception or seeing as some kind of visual phenomena?
it's more of a perception. And it's like one of those things where you wake up and you go, what was that? And like you know how we do that practice where we sit and observe it in the body, and then you wait for the expansion, you're waiting for the shift. Like when you start to have that lucid perceiving, you wake up and you go, oh, like I see something. What was that? And then you sit with it and it will begin to like blossom and open up to you. But if you use your intellect, it's like swiping, what is it, swiping left or right when it's a no?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Like on whatever apps, like, you're swiping and like, nope, next, next, next. You really have to be able to sit with it for a minute for it to like open up.
Okay.
Because like even dreaming, it's like, we go, oh, like, I dreamt about this situation or that situation or this scenario. But if you start watching like as you dream, there's different times you go to different places. And even though the scenario might play out different, you kind of visit these same places. Like they have a same feel or a same look or a same
Mhm.
kind of like color or something. And so it's more about the place than it is the activity.
Hmm.
Because like if you wanna gain certain kinds of information or certain kinds of guidance from intelligences, you have to be able to go to the right place, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Kind of. I will explore and report back.
Yeah.
Thank
Cool.
you so much.
You're so